Can I go? Okay. Well, welcome to the Capital Outlay Committee. Today is February the 2nd, 2022. We are going to go over the capital expenditures for year 23 and out years also. Before we start that, I handed out an article that was in the Chronicle on the 20th of January, and it's called "The Center's Financial Facts Needed," and it's by Richard Gunderson. If you don't know Richard is probably one of the most analytic financial person that Larry and I have bumped into. We've talked a couple of weeks ago about the middle school and where was it in terms at the beginning, what happened during the span up to today, finding out the profitability, and in fact, Larry and I were talking on the way in, back, I guess it was 15, 14, we actually had a committee that came in. I was on that committee. I was on the finance committee at the time, and also here. But we sat down and came out with the options back then. And it was up to the Board of Selectmen to follow through and everything. I just passed this out because I think this is a very good article on what a citizen sees who isn't sitting in these meetings, maybe as an observer, but has always asked the right questions. And I know Carol has met with him often. And I just think if you read this, it just stirs some interest that after town meeting, when we can set some of our own agendas, this should be one where we follow up. And I just passed that out. And Carol will get you a copy of it. Oh, you do? Good. So that's just a little housekeeping. We'll turn it over to the town administrator. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know the question was asked before regarding masks. I will tell you, however, and I should have told you, Mr. Chairman, that the board has been in the practice of you presenting. I'm taking my mask off. I'll present. I'll put my mask back on. Thank you, and thank you for that information. I'll certainly be able to speak to that that issue that Mr. Gunderson raised, because it is one of the many issues that we'll be debating and discussing at town meeting. So certainly we'll be discussing it over the coming months. First, I want to thank all of you for being able to be here today and in person. As you all know, there has been a lot of impacts to your process and the process that I join you in. But it's nice to have the committee as currently constituted present. And of course, we are still missing a representative from the planning board due to the passing of our dear friend Joe McParland. And it's good to be able to have the two newest members here participating and present, because Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'd say that today's effort is meant to be the last major step of the capital outlay to then transmit the process over to me to present to the Board of Selectmen generally with regard to the overall budget. Then for this committee to meet with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen at a public meeting, and then continue moving forward. The request that I would have in a moment is for you to draw your attention to the first of the 5-year capital outlay plan, and that would be fiscal year 2023, and that would be the budget for fiscal year 2003 for that plan and those projects. However, as I mentioned to you, Mr. Chairman, prior to the start of this meeting, you should all now have in front of you 3 requests that impact upon the community center. As I mentioned, when the finance director and I were still actively engaged in the budget discussion process with the department heads, we came across 3 items that constitute capital items rather than operating budget items. I will tell you that when the director of the community center was filling this out, the numbers that she initially presented to the finance director and I from yesterday have changed And so we know they changed because she's endeavoring to get the most accurate and up-to-date information. And so I'll walk through them, but given the pressures presently on the draft budget for fiscal year 2023, I am putting these items into the capital outlay plan in the out years. We don't have any more to give with regard to this, unfortunately, because as I go through them, I think you'll see there's merit to the requests. We simply are up against the clock and the bank. So the first application you should have in the packet is the replacement of weight room equipment and machines. It's $30,000 in 3 alternating years. The director was requesting $30,000 in fiscal year '23. So what you'll notice on the plan under community center is I'm recommending that there be $30,000 in 2024, $30,000 in 2025, and then $30,000 in 2027. So not completely alternating, but better than nothing. You can see, however, going on down the form, that the funding source for this is the Community Center Weight Room Revolving Fund. That's precisely what the revolving fund was established for, and that is what the weight room membership fees help to fund.
And is it just 30,000 out to fiscal year 2027, or does it go beyond that?
No, we're only constraining ourselves to fiscal years '23 through '27.
Okay.
The discussion yesterday was that it's a 3-year process of changing, so it can fit within the 5 years.
Okay, got it.
Thank
May
you.
I ask a question? So, Carol, is there 30 grand in that account now presently to replace that equipment?
I don't have the balance off the top of my head as of like the end of January, and I can certainly get that for you. The weight room revolving fund typically holds a very healthy balance.
So would it not be possible to utilize those funds to affect the replacement?
I wouldn't disagree if the committee went in that direction. As you'll hear for all of the projects, it's not gonna be the same.
No, I
This is
understand
the
that.
only one that has a dedicated
Yeah, I'm
funding
just
source.
familiar with this. I know that
Yep.
people pay fees for this.
I was gonna ask the same question.
Sure.
If the money's there, and it's not coming out of the budget per se, and
Yes, we could absolutely achieve that for this one.
Great.
So, what you have on the agenda is you have the discussion and possible vote on the town administrator's draft capital outlay budget. I think this is well within the realm of that open meeting law topic, so that as I finish, if the committee has changes to the draft, that's precisely what we're doing today. Should I continue?
as long as we go into discussion mode on the request versus the change, and if there's no financial impact per se, because the money is in a fund, we'll discuss it
Sure.
whenever. Okay.
Were there any other questions, though, specific to the first application, weight room equipment and machines? All right, then the next page you'll see, the request is $30,000, and it's adding industrial fans to the gymnasium ceiling. Certainly needed, however, there's not, I don't see a capability of accomplishing that this year, and it comports with the request of the director for fiscal year '24, or the second year of the plan. And
Is that 30 on here, though? The fan?
the 30 is on there, if you look at, yep, sorry, the 30 is on there, it's in the wrong year.
26?
You're missing a 30.
No,
Or gymnasium replacement.
gymnasium replacements.
I see.
And so if I could, though, before you get to that, you're then introduced to the big number in the plan, and that's the third page. And again, it's gymnasium replacements, and it's the gymnasium bleachers. It's a anticipated cost of $78,400. And you can see in the narrative that there are safety concerns. My first reaction to this form is to tell you that, yes, if we have safety concerns, then we'll bear that in mind for this year's annual town meeting, because this capital request would do nothing to accomplish that for our town meeting coming up in 89 days. And so, the request was requested for fiscal year 23, and I'm asking that it be placed in the fiscal year 24. So then if you match up the two items that we just talked about, you have $78,400 for bleachers, and you have $30,000 for fans, both of which are impacting on the gymnasium itself. And so that total request then for fiscal year 2024 is $1,008,400. I'll pause for a second to make sure I did the math right.
You did the math right, but you didn't put the dollar amounts in the right.
Correct. That's because we just got these forms, and we were rushing to get this form up to you, and my focus today was hopefully to be on fiscal year 23. So,
Okay.
again, the critical vote today is on the column that relates to fiscal year 23, and to the earlier question, certainly we can talk about that additional 30,000 because of the weight room revolving fund, but the focus is fiscal year 23.
Okay, Joe, let me ask the question. If we approve this sheet, we go into this nebulous area of taking a vote of town meeting to move something when we know that those two figures, or the 30 for the fans, should be over 1 year. Is that going to be something that if we don't move now before we take a vote,
So-
then we're going to butt
Yeah.
heads?
You have to get 2/3 vote to move it.
Yeah, that's my point.
Correct, presumably. Again, the issue that we're dealing with.
Wouldn't it be easier to move it as we're talking now?
Yes, except there's concern about our funding mechanisms for the out years.
Well,
And-
you're going to have funding mechanisms questions whatever year they're in. The question is if we have to change the year, knowing that it's in the wrong year.
No, sorry, to be clear, I agree with you changing the years, unless you're changing a year to fiscal year 23.
Right. I'm not,
Then I have a problem.
I'm
And
not
it's a-
talking
thank you.
23.
Yep.
I'm talking about, you said at the beginning, that 108.7
Yep,
is 70 change, 78 plus 30,
right,
correct?
correct.
And you're recommending that that 108 be in 24, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, why don't we just move the 30 as we speak now? Because we're not demanding anything on it.
Right, I agree with you. What I was suggesting is that it's already been moved,
Oh, well, then we,
for my purposes, because it does nothing to impact upon the effort today for fiscal
23.
year 23.
exactly.
Yep.
And John and I,
And so the numbering sequence that you see in the funding summary below will also be modified to reflect those changes.
okay.
So then, last but not least, I would say, Mr. Chairman, is, as you were alluding to before, discussion on moving the weight room equipment replacement to truly reflect an alternating year in years 1, 3, and 5 of the plan. I have no objection to that. I was trying to take the conservative approach, and if you're willing to go to that approach, because we do have the funding mechanism, fine by me.
Well, we as a committee want to discuss this now to make the
Yeah, I
change.
think that's the appropriate time.
Okay, so does anybody want to make a recommendation?
I'd like to move that we adjust this schedule and move that 30,000 into the 2023 fiscal year, because it is essentially not going to diminish the buying power because the funds are available.
And this is the weight room
The
equipment.
weight room equipment, 30,000.
No problem. I agree with that.
We good?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I heard a motion, I didn't hear a second.
I second it.
Oh, thank you.
So it is, in fact, become alternating.
Correct,
In fiscal year 23, will increase by 30 grand.
correct. So
Correct.
the new number for the annual totals under the column fiscal year 2023 would be
66.
Correct,
$3,866,681.
So it moves contingent on the fact that it will come out of the revolving fund.
So, right, and then what you will see on the final version in the warrant, the funding summary will have a reference to the the weight room revolving fund, presumably. Thank you.
Carol, do we have 30,000 to cover this?
So I can get the exact balance for you at the end of January, but I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can tell you that the weight room revolving fund historically has had a very healthy balance.
Even during COVID? I mean, has it been shut down at all during?
If I don't
COVID?
bounce a check, I have a healthy balance, $1, $2. The question is, can we cover 30?
So I'll have to get the
Okay,
exact number
okay.
for you.
I think it's
So
always,
yes, it was impacted by COVID, and in fact, the weight room was closed.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
It
so I
seems
just
to me,
want,
Carol, it's always been like 50, 60,000 around there, but you would know a lot better than I would.
Thank you. Okay, that helps 23.
Certainly, and while you're waiting for that, if you want, I can jump ahead to the discussion on the schedule, and then we can come back to it if you want.
Sure.
On the votes.
Any questions?
I got one on the bleachers. If Carol is saying that these things are needed this year because of safety issues, does that mean that they're gonna be shut down because they're unsafe until fiscal '24?
I would imagine, yes. So what we'll do is we'll work with the facilities manager
Yeah.
and the team to, verify what it is we're dealing with. If it's going to, reduce a number of available seats at town meeting for the present
That's what I'm
calendar
gonna get
year,
at, yeah.
we'll make arrangements in advance and perhaps secure another location. Getting the funding, as we know, is gonna be the first step, but the tremendous pressures that are out there on the supply chains and the markets change everything.
So there's not an R&M solution on this? You couldn't do a repair and maintenance on this to make it workable?
Again, this came out of a conversation that was held yesterday afternoon. Didn't want to miss the opportunity to reflect it as capital, so we'd have to do more of that evaluation.
Yeah, I think, having been in that world, I think you might find there's an R&M solution that would be less expensive.
Well, I think we all know Sean Libby well as well, and I think he would absolutely strive for that in the interim.
Yes.
The balance, I have the balance as of December 31st, was $220,324.
Okay, we're good.
I think it's good.
That more than covers it.
that check should be okay.
I think we just buy a new gym at that price.
Yeah.
We're good.
Again, for the record, that was not the request for a new gym.
Right.
So then, Mr. Chairman and members, if I could, to wrap it up on this matter. So again, if you draw your attention to the draft capital outlay plan in front of you, fiscal year 2023 shows projects relating to administration on Brooks Academy and the beautification of the villages of Harwich, Channel 18, Community Center, Cultural Center, Engineering, Facility Maintenance, Fire Department, Golf, Harbor Master, Library, Police Department, Public Works, Town Clerk, Water Department, and Wastewater Department. The total request of budget items in fiscal year 2023 is $3,866,681, and the funding table below captures the funding mechanisms, because we've included now a revolving fund for weight room, $30,000 for that project that was just added. So I think, Mr. Chairman, first, it would be appropriate to have a motion. My preference would be a motion to accept the budget as presented, a second, and then you can get into discussion, and then hopefully after that, I can convince you to vote in favor.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss before we take a motion, if that's all right. Mr. Chairman?
I'm looking at it to see. That's to discuss each item before we
Well, I
get...
just have one particular question.
Okay,
So before there's a motion to accept, I'd like to at least
right.
propose this concept, which is the gym, which is utilized for town meeting and lots of other functions, seems very important, and it's also a safety issue. Brooks Academy renovation project, we've got $250,000 slotted in there in 2023. I would like to suggest it's worthy of the board considering moving all of those years back one, so that we have the resources available now to deal with something that's a clear safety hazard utilized by many members of our community, where very few members of our community use Brooks Academy. So that would be my suggestion or topic for potential conversation. That would provide funding more than necessary to accomplish the safety function.
Is there any, do we know if there's any free money?
Well, I'm not prepared to answer in that manner. I'm prepared to rebut. The three applications that we just talked about this afternoon came out of a routine discussion on operating budget for far less dollar amounts. So the finance director and I think applied appropriate finance and management principles and said, those items that you're talking about trend more towards capital. Fill out the forms, give us the numbers that you think will match, and I'll present it tomorrow. The numbers, I think in some instances, increased by a multiple of 10. And in the first instance of reading that application was the first time that I've heard that the bleachers at the community center are unsafe. The discussion on Brooks Academy has been ongoing for years, as has the efforts. I don't disagree if the discussion's going to be that we need to emphasize the bleachers, and we don't know that we're gonna be able to accomplish the bleachers project in fiscal year '23, simply because we have funding giving the supply chain concerns that are out there for products of that nature. But to suggest that, perhaps we're looking at the first item in the plan, I don't think we are. I think what we're doing is suggesting impacting upon Brooks Academy, which I would argue has been, prior to my time here, a very well thought out project, and a project that relates to a building that is literally the top half of our town seal. It is in our culture, it is in our marketing, it is in our identity. So if the committee wants to engage in a back and forth with the administrator, I'd be disappointed with that, because I don't think that matches what the charter talks about. The charter requires me to develop a capital outlay plan, as well as a comprehensive budget. And the charter requires you folks to exist as a capital outlay committee to assist and to advise. And putting projects at cross purposes in the manner that was just suggested is not in that spirit and vein. So we'd have a problem.
So with no disrespect meant to the administrator, my perspective is that one provides a resource that will touch many members of our community. And frankly, for the shift, we'd also have the funds to empower the installation of the fans that the department head is requesting. So we'd have fans for town meeting, we'd have safe seating for town meeting, or multiple other purposes, where, again, Brooks Academy is a utilization that is experienced by very few people in this community. So I'm not looking to diminish the efforts you put forward to make that happen. I'm suggesting to you, like so many other things in the course of budgeting, it all be shifted back 1 year. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. I'm the liaison to the community center, and so I would, I know this came up at a meeting, I think, just last month, that there's potential concern about the bleachers. I think what Joel's brought is kind of raised down to the level that is almost an emergency. And that wasn't the discussion we had at our last community center meeting. So I'd like to maybe check into that a little more, see what the extent of the damage is. I take your point, it makes sense to me, but I'm a little uncomfortable with raising it to the level that we need to do it today, emergency side.
And I don't disagree with you. I guess my perspective is that if in fact this issue is as critical as it has been stated by the department head, then utilization against utilization, it makes, in my opinion, a great deal of sense to serve the larger good and to shift the other program back 1 year.
I just caught a little bit by surprise with the extent of this emergency.
Joe?
I want to make sure the proper messages are being conveyed at this meeting and to the hopeful viewing public and to folks that are going to be participating in town meeting. If there is any security or safety concern for life, limb, and hazard at the community center for town meeting in that gymnasium in 89 days on May 2nd, I will take every precaution necessary, working with the Board of Selectmen who have the statutory and charter requirement of establishing the location for town meeting, and we will find a safe and secure location while we deal with this issue. But to commingle this issue with Brooks Academy, I think is an unfortunate way to go at this late hour in this process. And I would hope that there would be a motion and a second and a debate to the merits of that motion, and I would love to speak to that, because I can defend everything in this plan and in my budget and how we're proceeding. And I would hope that the capital outlay would support me in that.
Well, I guess I have a question, and Larry, maybe, who declares it unsafe? And
So if I could respectfully, if I may.
let me finish
but
the and.
Okay, it would be the administrator working with staff.
Have you seen physically this dangerous zone?
I have not.
Okay.
And I was with many of you in October, and I know we utilize chairs on the floor, and my understanding is we utilize chairs on the floor to affect 6 feet of spacing. Again, in reading the documentation, this is the first I've heard of describing the bleachers in that manner.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, my point of view is if it's something that is short-term because of the meeting, and it can be rendered safe in another, given an alternative manner, it gives us time to fix it. And not a quick fix. And again, with everything happening now, trying to get equipment, trying to get labor, trying to get product, you know, we could be spinning our wheels here trying to say, we're gonna finish it by town meeting. And I think that's the issue. I'm been here a long time, and Brooks Academy has always been a main concern for this town. And I think the requests have not been out of line. The question is, when is the money available for them? And a lot of times, and we've looked at this, it's always been put on the back burner. So if you look at the priorities, you know, it becomes a wash to me. And I think it's you and the selectmen, as the administrator, to figure out, what do you want to do? So if you guys want to have a debate about it, I mean, I don't know procedurally how we do that.
I just have one question.
Sure.
Just in the event that those bleachers are looked at and they're unusable and you have to move town meeting, what would the contingency be?
So, yeah, the response was the high school. Any number of buildings that we could rely upon in this town, and not to go too far afield as a former town clerk, or another town if it really necessitated it. I don't think it's going to necessitate that. We have 2 other buildings in this town, such as the Monomoy Regional High School and the Cape Cod Tech High School. But again, I don't want this conversation to go off the rails. I am not aware that our current gymnasium in the community center is unfit for town meeting in 89 days, which this proposal would do nothing to help. So we can research that, we have documentation. So the real question is, how do I think we should use our money? This is how I think we should use our money.
I'm fine.
The
Thank you.
department head has indicated this is an essential need. She has clearly said it's not an enhancement, it's an essential need.
What's your preference, Mr. Chairman? I can do this all day, as Captain America used to say. The department head put the request in. The administrator bears the sole responsibility for developing a comprehensive budget, which includes capital. That's her job to inform me, and it's my job to make all the tough decisions.
There's an interim step.
There's many number of steps in between,
Well,
but
let me just, that interim step is, the request is made, this committee charter basically says, we are really supporting the town administrator and recommending what is a good number and what's a good thing to do. I think we have something here with, it sort of falls into this nebulous zone where some people say it's good, I'm sorry. And I just think, you know, what we need to do, rather than concentrating on this one issue, we can certainly note it and get hopefully more information on it, see what the alternatives are, and then decide. What do you got?
I'm definitely not in favor of putting the bleachers in front of Brooks Academy. And Brooks Academy's been in the plan as long as I can remember, and I think it needs to stay where it is in '23, and the bleachers need to stay where they are.
Okay. So we've got everybody noted.
Oh, I got a couple things to say there. One is that the bleachers, you know, I have full faith in Sean Livy, you know, and his department, maintenance department for this town, does wonders on fixing things. But the bleachers, fortunately, I think, are basically mechanical in nature. They're not a high-tech thing. I think Sean Livy could, at least temporarily, secure them for town meeting and stuff like that. But anyway, so that's that. Brooks Academy, I see Brian's point there. And I'm looking at a plan, fiscal year 21. 24. But I'm looking at one from 21 to 27. I don't see Brooks Academy on that anywhere. So to say that it's been in the plans for a long time, I haven't seen it in a long time. This is the only first year that I've seen Brooks Academy in there for monies, other than last year when we did $1.2 million of CPC funds. That's the only time I've seen it. And last year, there was great discussion on Brooks Academy as to what the true cost of that building was. It wasn't 1.2 million. I put it an estimate of 5 million. And we're seeing that now coming forward. I think these numbers here are low, but that's another discussion that Joe's 100% correct for another time. But to say that Brooks Academy's been in the plans, I've never seen it in plans other than last year.
Let me
So-
make note of that, but in past years, the out years were never really considered.
I don't even see it in out years. You
What
know?
I just said,
Yeah.
they were not considered.
Oh,
They were not input. We had in 20 or 19, 20, 21 possibly, maybe not 21, but the out years were not input.
okay.
So the issue is, there were discussions, and certainly the selectmen and past town administrators and current town administrators have discussed it. The question is, they never made the plan because the out years were never considered. This is the first year where we're voting a 5-year, 23 budget, 5-year plan.
Right.
Okay? This is the first time we've done that. Every other year, our concern and our time was spent on current year, voting on current year. So it made no difference, as Pete Watson would say, the placeholders didn't make a difference. And we weren't concerned about a vote. Now we're very concerned about, if we put it in the third year, trying to change it.
Yep.
When you didn't have to fill it in, who cared if you had to change it or not? You just did it. So I think there's so much more emphasis on filling in the years and trying to make it correct. And I think that, certainly an example that you bring up,
Yeah.
it's not that there wasn't a concern, it's, I didn't have to do it.
Well, it's 100%. I'm glad that this year is the first year we've actually had a capital plan, a capital budget, whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what to call it, but we have a 5-year plan now
Right. showing
showing the taxpayers of town what to expect in 5 years. And we're seeing that at $80 million right
Yeah.
now, the bottom
And I
line.
think what-
But we cannot say it's been in the works for years past. It hasn't.
I would suggest It hasn't been placed on this plan,
Right.
but it's been a discussion.
Discussion doesn't, this is a
If
good
it,
step.
if it's not, if it wasn't included as input, there was still discussion on it,
Yeah.
okay? I mean, that's the way it was for years. You just, the out years didn't make a difference, but there was a discussion, Joe.
To pick up on that, Mr. Chairman, it is absolutely accurate to say that the Brooks Academy Museum project has been discussed for years. And in fact, the member forgets the discussion that we had last year under previous plans. Brooks Academy Museum Commission has been seeking community preservation funds for as long as I can remember.
Me too.
And having said that, for as long as I can remember goes back to 2015 when I moved into town. This is a deliberate effort to put on notice that there are capital items related to Brooks Academy which are not eligible for community preservation funding. So the combination of the efforts of the prior administrator and prior presenters, as well as the current chair of the Brooks Academy Museum Commission, in front of community preservation is well documented, and it was well documented through Finance Committee. This plan now reflects the capital items that don't match CPC. It is merging what I heard many people tell me over the last year or two to make sure I do, and that's to create a transparent statement of what's happening. This line item that you're gonna be voting on, hopefully today, and adopting, is one piece of the overall picture. It's not the overall plan, I told you about that. The plan for capital outlay is gonna be a booklet that talks about all of the capital assets that we have. So we're talking about vehicles and other type of equipment. We're talking about buildings. It will also reflect actions by community preservation, which is separate and distinct, but tied to capital. So Brooks Academy Museum Commission has actively worked on this project for at least the last 7 years, has actively pursued whatever funding they can get through community preservation, and we're now bringing it to its conclusion for items of a capital nature that can only be funded through the capital plan.
Got it, John?
I got it, and I like this plan, you know.
Well, I think Joe brought it up, board matching the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Oh, for sure. No, it's an excellent document here. Yeah, excellent. It's just, it's documented for one thing.
Yeah,
That's the thing. It's
yeah.
not discussed.
Right.
It's documented.
Right.
And townspeople can see $80 million for 5 years.
Well, going along with that too, John, I mean, if I were I am, but if I didn't sit on this committee or the finance committee and I understood nothing, my big thing is 23 is 4 million, and then I go to 44 million, okay? Now, again, it's telling the truth.
Right.
You got a bump of 30 million and you got a bump of 7 million, so that's 37 million. If I take the 37 million off there, I'm pretty close back to the 4. I'm 7, 4, 3, whatever. You're in single digits of millions.
Right.
So this is a true analysis or a true picture of
Exactly.
what to expect. And we've always said I don't want to say normal, the average resident, that, you know, his value now is over 400,000, but he used to be like 3.25, 350. Now he's pushing 4. For that person, he's the one that walks his dog and bumps into you and says, "What the hell are you doing with the taxes?"
Right.
Okay? Well, this truly says, you know, the Board of Selectmen and I, when I had a different responsibility, we would discuss that all the time. And then you give the selectman telephone number and let them discuss it.
No, it's.
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I hope we're not going to vote for the entire 5-year plan at one time. I would much rather make a motion to approve the administration than another motion for Channel 18, another motion for Community Center. And the reason I say that is there are some items in this 5-year plan, not in year 23, but in the out years, that I am not completely happy with. And so I would rather vote individually by department.
So I wouldn't have any objection to that at all. However, the specific request on your agenda today is simply related to fiscal year 2023. So that we can either affirm that, change that, but we need to come to a decision on fiscal year '23 so that the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee can have a joint public meeting with us on that element of the budget. So I don't disagree with that.
So we're going to vote on 23 only. We're not voting any of the items on 24, 25, 26, or 27.
Correct. I'm requesting a vote on the fiscal year 2023 budget of the
Okay.
capital outlay plan, not the entire plan.
And at this point, we're not committed to those other years then.
Correct. I would argue that this is a draft plan. The vote today takes fiscal year '23 from draft, and if it passes, solidifies it.
Okay.
Yes?
I hate to bring back the bleachers, but I'm okay with you having a backup for the town meeting. I think if it was outside, you'd have a backup. To me, it's no different. But if you were to do some research and decide those bleachers were in need of repair, would the repair cost be a capital appropriation item, or would it be part of the operating budget?
So I would argue that, well, if it's simply removal, that would be one thing.
No, if you had to replace them, I get that's
Yeah, I'd say
capital, but.
repair and replace to me matches the definition of what capital is. But the other thing I want to put out there is we're talking about bleachers in a gymnasium where most of our community games are in other buildings. So, you know, it's a requirement for administration to work with facilities management to say, okay, the bleachers don't work. Are we going to replace them? And if we're going to replace them, what's the use that we have aside from town meeting?
Right.
You know, I'm not looking at my gymnasium solely as a place for town meeting.
I just thought if there were flexibility that it was an operating expense to repair, then you can do it without having to come back and put a capital item in there.
So,
right?
yeah, you could, but if you do it as an operating item, you have to have the appropriation in the budget, and if you put that number in a budget like that, it draws a lot of scrutiny, rightfully so, from these gentlemen and their committee, and it just puts undue pressure on the operating budget.
Yeah, I was just thinking from a timing perspective, then you don't push it out
So,
longer.
yeah, no, and if I could build off of that, if for some reason this room became inoperable right after we met, we, administration, facilities management, and in this instance, our station, Channel 18 station manager, the primary user of this room, if you will, for the technology that exists, we would analyze, can we get it back online?
Right.
And if we can, where are we gonna get the funds from? And if we have the funds, when are we gonna do it? We're also gonna talk about that program is impacted, what are we gonna do in the meantime? In other words, we're gonna do what we do day in and day out
Right.
on many things. So the questions are always going to be, what happened? If it's an emergency nature, what emergency caused it? Because if it's an act of God, we might be able to get money through that. And then we just keep doing what we do. So that's why I want to emphasize that because we're talking about bleachers in a gymnasium that are in disrepair, probably the safest thing I can say right now, but we don't know to what degree, the immediate thought should be, we do not have any funding that was, to my knowledge, that was appropriated or allocated in fiscal year '22 to impact upon that. So I think some savvy town meeting members are out there going, if they don't have bleachers at town meeting in 89 days, where's town meeting?
Right.
So we will address it as an immediate concern to validate where we're at, whether or not we can do repair and maintenance on it and anything else, and then have a more measured and thoughtful approach to future actions.
No, and I think that's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Let me just add something to that while you're in the effort of looking at these bleachers. You're talking 2 out of 4. You got 2 left. When are they gonna go? And
Correct, right.
the costs keep on going up. I mean,
Correct, and that's part of the
Yeah.
analysis that we have to do for no other reason from a procurement standpoint.
right,
You know, if we're analyzing the bleachers in the gymnasium and we believe that 2 of the 4 don't meet the manufacturer or industry standards for safety, then we have to test the other 2. And then the question really becomes, and that's why I've said, you know, if I'm facing a prospect where 3 out of 4 bleachers are out of commission,
Right.
It may be simpler, and I'll say it that way, because I'm looking for a camera somewhere to say we're merely hypothesizing here. It may be simpler to remove them and to replace them with chairs. Or any number of actions, but
Or the
you're absolutely right.
whatever the final input,
Correct,
final fix is, whether it's chairs or replacing.
correct, right.
It's like having,
But the point is well taken,
you know,
that if
two
we're dealing.
flat tires and the other two are bald. I mean, do you get a whole set of four, or do
Correct.
you know?
So this is really a placeholder till you figure out what we need to do.
That's the way I would like to be able to handle it, and I appreciate the way you've said that.
It would be a placeholder in 24.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yes.
question. And is there any way the revolving account could be used to repair one of the bleachers, perhaps this year, and then the other one next year? Is that a possibility?
Excellent question, and the answer is absolutely not. The revolving
Too
fund.
good to be
is-
true.
No, so the revolving fund is a weight room revolving fund, and and recognizing for new members, I can get you some information on that. Chapter 8 of our general bylaws lists all the revolving funds and what they're used for. So we do not have a gymnasium revolving fund, correct? Thank you. So we don't have that fund set up. Having said that, that might be an administrative or management decision that we may contemplate establishing a gymnasium revolving fund for just such a reason. But at present, the weight room is only for the weight room.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rich, just one quick question. We are going to vote on a 5-year plan though, right, at some point?
Yes.
Okay, just to
Not
make
today.
sure that.
We're having enough
Yes.
trouble getting,
I know, but I don't want to lose sight of the 5-year vote either, so.
no,
Yep.
remember, it's the
Good.
budget and it's the complete plan.
Yep.
So we're looking at the budget. Joe, where do you want to take us now?
I'm
How do
sorry.
you want
didn't
to
hear-
handle,
So I don't disagree with members if you want to do line by line, but what I'm asking for in the end is whether the committee endorses the requested items in fiscal year 2023 that, again, total a capital outlay request of $3,866,681, which, as you can see, we have identified the funding sources to cover that.
let me ask the question of all of you, the committee, is there, I mean, it's been in front of us, is there any number that stands out at you that you'd like to question, or do we go line by line?
As long as we're only talking about 23,
All we're doing is
Okay.
23.
then
Anything?
that satisfies me.
Good, I'm happy. Yeah. Okay, Joe, well, let's take it line by line and we'll go down.
Sorry, what's my role?
Your role is to, okay, I'll take it. Administration, Brooks Academy renovation project, 23, year 2023, for $250,000. All those approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can you raise your hand? So that's 5 to 1. Beautify the villages of Harwich, $50,000. There were any questions about that one? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's 6-0. Now we'll go down to, there's nothing on accounting and nothing from the cemetery. Channel 18. There's a 0 request for 23. Any questions? Any discussion?
Nope.
There a motion?
Channel 18 has 66,000 for 2023.
Yeah, but I'm doing one at a time, main
Oh,
controls.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, it's just easier than.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, but-
It's for the 0.
Well, if it's 0, why don't we just go past it?
I don't want to. I want to discuss each one, because if somebody wants to discuss, we should put $50,000 there.
Okay.
I don't want to skip that.
Motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 6-0. Now, Channel 18, equipment, meeting rooms, and field equipment for $66,470. Any discussion?
Yeah, I thought that Channel 18 had some kind of a fund where where the,
The PEG account.
yeah,
It's down below.
I'm surprised that
below.
that's there.
Well, it's there as an expense, but it's being funded by
Right.
the
Oh,
account at the
okay.
bottom.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
Right here, Bruce.
so that's a discussion,
okay.
okay?
Motion to approve.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. But that's a good point. Okay, now we're at the community center. Green Community Utilities. Can you tell me what that is, Joe?
Good question.
So as you may recall, when Sean Libby presented, we are a green community, which the Commonwealth bestows the designation on a town. We have to make certain expenditures that allocate to remaining to being a green community. And I will say that we expect to receive very positive news that I'm perhaps not at liberty to say right now regarding grants that can emanate from that. So that grant communities utilities is something that helps us achieve green community grants to offset.
Okay,
So it's a demonstrated commitment to the program. Harwich has been very successful under the leadership of Sean Libby, and I would urge that to remain, because if it doesn't, we could lose our certification as a green community, and more importantly, lose access to state grants.
okay, so we're throwing it in to get state grants, and it's coming out of free cash.
So I'm asking that the column
Yeah,
is matched up with the funding source. We haven't identified specifically a funding source. I don't know that that's necessary to do.
well, if you're assuming, I'm assuming that the bottom chart are funding sources.
Yeah.
The only one that would fund that is free cash.
Well,
Right.
if I could,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right. So, thank you. My concern was the line that said general fund debt exclusions. So I wasn't prepared to speak to the specificity. If you folks want to do it that way, that's
Oh,
fine.
I'm not-
What I'm hoping we end up with, Mr. Chairman, sooner rather than later, is a bottom line that matches the funding bottom line.
yeah. I'll buy that. My point is, if I take all these numbers on this first column, they all add to that 3866681, and that matches the funding sources at the bottom, and the only category that could handle, or that it's dedicated to 437.4 is 2,280,211, and that's titled free cash.
Understood,
That's my only point.
understood.
So we're good?
Yep.
All those in motion?
What are we getting for 437,000? What is it?
Could we recess and I'll go back through all the applications?
It was a boiler. They have to put a new boiler in there. Roof?
I apologize, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My understanding that we were at the point where everyone has presented the materials. I have an obligation to get my budget done next week, and I was looking for a final action on the capital budget. If we want to go back through these, I can grab my materials.
No, that's,
No, you don't have to, but what's the top two items in it? You must remember them. I don't remember them.
With regard to green communities?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of the lighting that we talk about. It's anything to do that impacts upon energy use.
Okay.
all those
The
in
most
favor?
recent example, we're now sitting under new lights that were a green community project in fiscal year '22. We've done most of the buildings. As you've heard, Sean also wants to impact upon the heating system. So anything that gets to a greener output of our use of energy sources, I think that gets to carbon footprint.
Okay,
Motion to approve the 437.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Okay, that's 6. The privacy fence for $75,000.
yeah, motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Somebody else can make a motion if they want.
Okay, so we have an air conditioner replacement and a generator, and I'll just say they're both at 0. Motion to approve both of them at one time.
Motion to approve the rest of those that are 0.
Okay,
Second,
Aye.
okay, so those 6-0, 6-0. Now, the weight room Equipment replacement, that 30,000 in the in 24 shifts over.
Correct.
So we need to approve that $30,000 for the weight room replacement.
In 2023.
Yes, thank you. All those in favor? Somebody's got to make the motion.
You need to add the revolving fund, Joe, to the bottom chart.
Yeah, yes, that'll be added to that,
Mm-hmm.
for the three consecutive.
Brian,
three
did you,
alternating
are you,
years.
Sure.
okay. Brian's made the motion. I second it.
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Okay, so that's 6-0. Okay, nothing in the, you have said to where there's a 0, they're all approved?
That was his motion, yeah.
All those,
Which one are we doing?
no, you said in general, if there's a 0
Oh.
there, we should consider it approved. I need a motion.
Motion to approve all those zeros. I thought I said that.
You did, but we weren't talking about that at the time.
I'll second it.
Second,
Thank you. All those approved?
third.
Aye.
Okay, so all the zeros become 6-0. 6-0. Nothing at the cultural center, nothing on emergency management, that's automatically 6-0. Engineering via administration, $100,000.
We have no choice on this. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's 6-0. Again, ADA compliance, 0, that's approved. Ambulances, 0, 6-0. Engines and other fire equipment, $450,000. I'm sure that should be equipment.
Is that going to be debt exclusion? No?
I have it in the category of free cash.
Free cash? Okay.
Joe, can you change that from equipped to equipment? Fire department vehicles. And I'm assuming those are, other than, yeah, that's like 2 pickup.
Those are the staff vehicles that the chief and deputy talked about.
Okay. For, okay, we voted on the 450. For vehicles,
Motion to accept?
Second.
can I have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 6-0. Irrigation update, that's a 6-0. Vehicle purchase, 90,000, that comes out of the revolving fund, right? Golf.
It comes out of free cash.
Free cash,
This vehicle is used by the golf department, and it's also used to plow.
okay.
Motion to approve the vehicle purchase for the
Second.
golf, 90,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Approved.
Aye.
Rich, could I ask Joe a question? When you produce a final document, Joe, are you going to label each item where the funding source is? Because it's confusing to look down the bottom and try to figure out which one down the bottom is funding and which article up top.
Yes, but if you remember, what's going to be produced this year is a booklet.
Yeah.
And so within the booklet, there's going to be a summary page, then there's going to be a breakout of the funding sources. So what items are coming under free cash, what items are coming under enterprise, what items will also be community preservation, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, but not
In a different format.
not simply in this form.
Okay.
Will that be done by the time we have a joint venture between the selectmen and the finance committee as to?
The one pager will be done, but the entire booklet
No,
takes more
but-
time to
So we
prepare.
have it's confusing for me to see how these things are funded. I see the summary, the bottom of each one matches, but I don't know which one's being funded by free cash, debt exclusion.
Well,
Perhaps
the
color-coded?
easier way is 7, 66, 4, and 90. Those are 4 numbers. And so that's 4 numbers out of the 20-something, which means everything else is free cash. Correct?
That's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a member asked about color coding. I stray away from that as a
You know what I mean, John?
colorblind
I do
individual.
know
Got
that,
that,
but I'd like
yes.
to see which, like debt exclusion. I don't know which one is debt exclusion up there and which is free cash up there.
It would be considered free cash for now.
No,
What is it?
there's two items. There's debt exclusion of 700,000, which is a one-time hit for the tax
But
rate.
those are what I just said, 700, 700, 66, 470, and 90 are the only ones that are defined. The other X minus 4 are under free cash.
So which ones are debt exclusion?
So, I can answer that, Mr. Chairman.
ahead.
As has been done in years past, when you look at, I'm not sure you're there yet, but Public Works, road maintenance improvements.
Okay.
Again, talking about transparency, in years past, it used to be put in as $700,000. In reality, it's 1.4 million.
Okay.
1.4 million will be Chapter 90 funds.
And the other debt
Excuse me,
exclusion.
700 of the 1.4 is Chapter 90, 700 is the general fund debt exclusions.
Okay.
And that policy or mechanism hasn't changed.
Okay. Thank you, Joe, 'cause
We're
that
good?
explains it perfectly. So the rest is all free cash. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, now we've done golf. Let's try Harbor Master. Nothing, no capital requests for 23. Now let's vote on it, just in case. Allen Harbor Jetty, 0, 6-0. Herring River Ramp Replacement, 6-0. Saquatucket Bulkheads Replacement, 6-0. Weechmere Outer Harbor Dredge, 6-0. Vehicle Replacement, 6-0.
I'll make a motion to approve all those zeros with the understanding that I'm not approving the Allen Harbor Jetty in '24.
We're not worried about 24.
I know that, I'm just going on
Can't
the
put the
record.
caveat, you can't put the caveat on it,
Getting on the record, huh?
yeah. You'll be here next year, don't worry. Just like we'll provide sidewalks for you. Health.
Motion to approve all the zeros for fiscal year 2023 for the harbor
Okay.
master.
You want to take the next, yeah, vote 6-0. Health is-
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Too many zeros. Health Department, zeros, 6-0. IT, wow. Is IT being considered expense?
So IT traditionally has been, it's the one outlier. Most of that equipment is the operational budget of IT.
Least,
You have a salaried person, and the expenses, other than benefits, go to equipment.
okay. Okay, so that's 6-0. Library, interior modifications, 0. Police Department,
Do you want me to make a motion for the
Please.
zeros? $0 for fiscal year 2023 for health, IT department, library, natural resources, and planning department.
all those in favor? Or-
Second.
Aye.
Second, all
Aye.
those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The Police Department equipment replacements, 49,200.
Motion to accept?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Police Department technology replacement, 14,138.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Now, I've got a question. We had said we were gonna look at if there was anything under 50, but yet it accumulated, or the total number was 50 or greater, it would be on this plan. So 14, 18 is 32. Is the 32 to be added to the 143.3? Or is it just technology replacement?
Again, the effort is really to try to get into greater transparency. However, I think if we had a line item that said Police Department, equipment and technology replacements,
Make it one line rather than two?
right, and then I would just be prepared to speak to more specificity.
I only bring that up because town meeting has looked at this and tried to catch us and say, you said it was 50,000, you're not giving me 50,000 even over 5 years. So I'll combine those two. Can I have a motion on that, please?
Yep, motion to combine equipment replacement and technology replacement as one item in the fiscal year '23 budget.
Yeah, we're not looking at the plan, at the budget number, correct.
Right.
Motion to, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So Joe, you're gonna just put those numbers?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, if I could very quickly, you had asked about an earlier line. Actually, if you look under fire department, the reason why that line item says engine, it's engines and other fire-equipped vehicles. So the word vehicles is missing from that line.
Not meant.
Correct.
Yeah, that was that new brush,
Correct.
Brush cutter, or, yeah,
brush fire.
Brush truck.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So now we go to Public Works. Ball Fields Mower, 64,473.
Motion to approve.
Seconds?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Road maintenance and improvements, that's the 14, which is the 7 and 7 on the bottom.
Yeah.
They have a motion?
Motion to accept?
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vehicle replacements, and we
Motion to approve.
got the schedule on that. So we're, there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the transfer station generator, which is 0. Motion? We can do a double here if you like.
Motion to approve the transfer station generator at 0 in fiscal year '23 and construct maintenance building at 0 in 2023 for Public Works.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. We're going down to the town clerk. Voting equipment replacement, 75,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Can I ask a question on that one? Is there any chance there might be a grant for that?
I can state with certainty, no.
No?
Because the Commonwealth, through the Secretary of State, they certify the equipment. So by the time it comes on the marketplace, they've already done their vetting. They've already identified what they believe to be the best systems to use, and each town is required to fund their own. Some towns may be able to rely upon other special funds that they've amassed, but in this instance, 75,000 is covered by free cash.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going down to the water department. And we're only looking at the vehicle replacement for 90,000 in '23.
That comes out of funds, right? That come out of enterprise
Oh,
funds?
sorry, yes, I thought you said, here comes the fund.
Yeah.
Correct, as you can see the line item down below.
Yeah.
Water retained earnings, 90,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need a big one.
I'll do it.
Okay.
Motion to approve a 0 balance for equipment replacements, pavement management plan, new well construction, Route 28 water main replacement, paint Pleasant Lake Ave tank, distribution system upgrades, pipe discontinuity, is that the word?
Right.
Upgrade, water department for fiscal year 2023.
So we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Okay.
Want me to do the last one?
Yeah, please.
Motion to approve for the wastewater department fiscal year 2023 budget, East Harwich collection system expansion, Phase 4 collection system design, Route 28 sewer main installation at 0.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I have a question. In support of future years out, at next town meeting, the discussion about 3/4 of the vote or half of the vote, or whatever the hell the number is. Does the finance committee take the lead on that with you? Or do you, in
I
other
would-
words, who do you need to support to get things changed? Does
So
it come
it-
out of capital outlay or out of finance?
I would say that it needs to emanate from the Board of Selectmen. So these are charter provisions. The Board of Selectmen are the custodians of the charter, and they would be the ones to grant the warrant article. So for me, the discussion should start from that level. In this instance, if capital outlay wants to convey to the Board of Selectmen a desire for changes, I think that would be helpful. But I think it's appropriate to start at the board level, because then the board can direct me, if they want that, to then go to the the bylaw charter review committee to do their standard process.
And is there any work underway with this review committee to change what they initiated?
So I have had direct conversations with them at their public meetings. I have contemplated potential articles, and when we get into the schedule, I can tell you about that right now. But it has not gone to the board level, and I do not believe that the bylaw charter review committee is looking to initiate that. So I've been talking about it quite a bit, but nothing concrete yet, but I can also speak to the schedule next.
Okay. So we've voted that 2023 would fall 6-0, except for the first one, which is the Brooks Academy. That's,
May I request where the majority prevailed in every instance, that the committee consider then an omnibus vote, that to endorse the fiscal year 2023 capital outlay budget of $3,866,681.
yes.
I'll make a motion. Motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 capital appropriation budget of $3,866,681.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the efforts that brought us to this point. Like I said, especially with a lot of the external impacts on meeting schedules and all that fun stuff. The next item that you had on your agenda was a discussion on future meeting schedule. I don't think there's a need to set a meeting right now, but I just wanted to advise the capital outlay, what I've already informed the Finance Committee Chairman and the Board of Selectmen Chairman. In accordance with the charter, I'm presenting my budget message to the Board of Selectmen Monday evening, February 7th. That budget message, and that's why it was important for me to have that vote, that budget message will include discussion about operational and capital budgets. The charter then requires the board on or before the second Tuesday of fourth Tuesday in February, that they must then take any votes to amend or endorse the administrator's budget and send it over to the Finance Committee. So the Finance Committee will have the comprehensive budget February 23rd, and the charter requires them to work on that through March 31st. Within that timeframe, still contemplating a budget meeting that some of you may recall in the past that used to be in this room on a Saturday, crammed, and that's why the cramming part gives that meeting some doubt. But in any event, the Finance will be meeting, I believe, throughout the remainder of the month of February and all of March, and the charter requires the Board of Selectmen to have meetings with the Finance Committee. One of those meetings is a requirement of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee to meet in a joint public meeting for a presentation of the capital plan by the Capital Outlay Committee. So that would be a future meeting that we're looking to schedule.
And I would assume that there would be capital outlay committee meeting prior to that.
We can certainly do that as an
To
effort.
understand the budget on top of, the plan on top of the budget,
Understood.
because we've only voted for, I'm gonna say one half of the plan for the sake of argument. So we still have, looking at the out years, and see if they make sense.
The out years are scary.
Well, that doesn't eliminate the fact that it's gonna, we have to swallow it. I think that, you know, between the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen and us, the joint review and understanding how big the numbers are in the future years, and given the history of what these large numbers were and now are different, understand what the difference is and the reality of those numbers. We've had a lot of changes, and that's something to be discussed. And I think that it's a good time for the citizens of Harwich to understand that the numbers may have changed and why they changed, okay? Or that the numbers never were there, and now these humongous numbers are there, and the validity of those numbers. And I think through this committee, your committee, Board of Selectmen, can add the validity value to them. So all I'm saying is we need another 2 meetings,
Absolutely.
at least 2 more meetings of this group to interpret the plan. And if we have to vote the plan, we have to understand a little more than.
Understood.
And I would ask
Yep.
Joe that we spent a lot of time, and we sort of, with COVID and everything else, you don't have the stack of papers that generated this, okay? But I think we need either the requester or the stack of papers minus 2023 to, to understand the requests in 24, 25, 26, and 27.
Can I just add to that? It would be helpful, and I know I'm new on the committee, but to understand what our thoughts are for how we're gonna pay for that. I mean, I get that everything has to, everything's important, and I can see that, budgets are tight, and it is really a dance around that, but especially with the wastewater, because that's really the biggest
Yeah,
piece of
and
this.
it is, and it's been complicated, and it's been changed so much.
Right.
With different engineering plans and different, whatever. And I think, our charter is to support where the town administrator decides, he decides the funding mechanism, not us. So it's,
Correct, but I'm just talking about people in the town understanding where this money is gonna come from would be helpful.
and that's where, those 2 gentlemen there with the white hair.
That's why they have the white hair.
Not John and I. Brian, no.
No hair.
I think what we have to understand is, it's up to them.
Right.
We support them.
But at least I feel this way, in making decisions to say I can approve this, I also need to understand where the money's coming from. Like, I don't understand, and I know I'm new, but I don't know how much debt we have outstanding. I don't know how much debt we can have outstanding to keep our AAA rating. Is that the goal? Or are we willing to go lower in the rating? So we have to pay for this somehow, and I know taxes are gonna be the main source, right? And we're probably gonna get a lot of kickback about the facts that your taxes went up this year just because your appraised value went up. But, what are the other sources? And that's all I'm asking is, it would be helpful, like if you're making a decision to say, I can understand the wastewater number, I totally get it. But how are we paying for it is helpful in that decision of saying, yeah, I can get on board about that.
And I know you haven't been full-time here, okay?
Right.
But during the seasons, these committees, like wastewater or, they will have open meetings for people to come in and discuss, how much wastewater is, what neighborhoods are impacted, and the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen show up, and they'll call in certain areas that are affected immediately, and so you're 100% right.
Right.
But there's a general information distribution process that it's their responsibility to the residents to feed them the information. I mean, that's the best way to put it.
But I don't want to sit on a committee and make endless decisions about, yeah, we need to spend this, we need to spend this, if I don't understand where it's coming from. And that's just me personally, so I maybe need a little bit of education about that.
We can do that.
I need a little education.
We can do that, and that's, when we ask, just like the issue about how much do we have to cover, where Carol went out and found out that there's, over 200,000 or whatever the number was. We can't approve, we're not gonna approve something because it says, well, the money is there. Well,
Right, and I know that Joe has covered what he needs to cover in fiscal year '23. No doubt he's not putting it forward unless he can pay for it, so I understand that, so I feel comfortable with fiscal year '23.
go ahead.
I'm going to suggest that we're talking about the schedule, which is the item on your agenda, because we don't have a notice for a broad discussion of the overall plan. But I do want to emphasize that if you look at the bottom of that page, the numbers all tie back.
Right.
And so to that discussion, and as was said earlier, if you look at the outlying years, it's very easy to pinpoint in fiscal years '24 and '25 what the budget busters are. It's the ones we've always known about, the ones that relate to water and wastewater.
Yep.
And so I think what the members might find helpful is the discussion on what the town has done in the past regarding the state revolving fund and those efforts on our wastewater. But this is how I see the next 5 years playing out predominantly.
Well,
And there, but for the grace of God,
Thank
we
you for pointing that out.
got relief in fiscal year '23 in capital, because to give a snippet or a sneak preview, the operating budget for fiscal year '23 is very difficult. Very difficult to move forward on and not impact upon programs.
well, the bottom chart is a bit, to me, a bit confusing when we sort of put together all, debt exclusion, coming out of here, paying it for this way, paying, and the title called free cash, and it's within free cash. And there's so many definitions that we're categorizing within free cash. And I think that may be a little confusing. And it's confusing for me, and I've been here a long time, but the free cash number is a debt number, it's a free cash number.
Right.
So I think when Joe actually applies the funding source, and that's where John was asking about, how do I know where it's coming from?
Right.
Well, unfortunately, he needs the approval of the numbers. And the process we went through only works if he can fund it the way he thinks he's gonna fund it, and we're seeing something called free cash, and it's not really free cash.
Right.
So you're reading it correctly.
Yeah, okay.
John?
Just a question to Joe, if I may. Any idea, Joe, when we're gonna have that joint meeting between the finance and the selectmen and the capital outlay?
So I think that needs to be a discussion of the Board of Selectmen chairman and the Finance Committee chairman,
Okay,
to work on when the members can meet. The only caveat I'd put out there is, this is a 6-member board, well, 4 added because you folks will be there on behalf of FinCom. The Board of Selectmen's a 5-member board. I think right now we just need to be mindful of restrictions. And, if we're all in person, we're all masking. So
Yep.
for that, we may want to contemplate a separate night, and we may want to contemplate a separate location.
should I be in contact with Michael, or,
It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I've informed, well, as you know, you got the email that I
Yeah,
sent
yeah,
2
yeah.
weeks ago to the 2 of you, so I think that now is the time to have conversations.
okay, I'll touch base with Mike, thanks. Thank you.
Sure.
Good plan, Joe, good plan, I like it.
Onward and upward. But thank
Yeah,
you all
this is-
again, I appreciate the
This is
effort.
the first exercise we've done with this. I think
Yeah.
it's easier as we
Yeah.
go forward. I would like, and I think you guys, I've said this before, after town meeting, it's sort of a dead zone. We sort of like, and if anybody wants a topic discussed or something that we want to analyze, I'm going to call it free time for us, that we can sit down and discuss something, or some issues, you know, or something that, oh, let me throw something out. Even though it's approved, 10 minutes, 5 minutes before town meeting, this can change again.
Correct.
Every year, it's the
Sure,
same thing.
correct.
We've had water issues where we've gone in the night, you know, the night of town meeting, we're all with the selectmen, and we're all in a room, and we find out, well, there's another $100,000 we didn't know came out of water or whatever. We have to vote it in, change the plan, change the plan, change the budget. So these are requests, they have been approved by us, understanding that this is as of today, okay? And it's subject to change until town meeting, until the vote. So I just want to make sure that we understand that. And if we anticipate or hear anything, we need to know. And we've gone through this, Larry, a number of times.
Well, you're right, every year, because something comes up.
Yeah, I mean,
Water pipe.
how many more days, 89? 89 more days?
Put together a good budget.
89 more days, well,
So we have 3 months of assuming that nothing's gonna change on this request. And that's a pretty big assumption.
fingers crossed.
Yeah. And today is St. Blaise Day.
No.
So,
Oh, that's right, that's
Keep your
right,
throats clean and
that's right.
we're happy. That's it. Do I hear a motion?
Like to make a motion that we adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Rich.
Posted, Joe, okay?
Have always